His hand was on my throat, not squeezing, not yet, just resting there, his thumb pressed against the hollow where my pulse hammered like I'd been running for my life. Maybe I had been. Maybe I'd been running since the moment I signed that contract 6 months ago, and I was only now realizing I'd been running straight toward him. "You're trembling," he said, his voice so quiet it barely disturbed the silence of his office. The entire 53rd floor belonged to him. At 2 a.m, it belonged to us. "Are you afraid of me?" I should have said yes. That would have been the smart answer, the safe answer. Instead, I whispered, "No." His fingers tightened just slightly. Not enough to hurt, just enough to remind me he could. Liar. The city lights of Seoul blazed behind him through the floor-to-ceiling windows, turning his face into a study of shadows and sharp edges. Kang Joon-ho, 43 years old, CEO of Kang Industries, married, untouchable, and currently backing me against his desk with the kind of controlled precision that made my knees weak. "I'm not afraid of you," I said again, and this time it was true. I was afraid of myself, of how much I wanted him to move that hand lower, to press harder, to finally cross the line we'd been dancing around for months. "Then what are you afraid of?" His other hand came up to brace against the desk beside my hip, caging me in. His cologne was subtle, expensive, mixed with something darker, whiskey. He'd been drinking, just enough to loosen whatever iron control usually kept him at arm's length. "This," I breathed. "What happens if someone finds out?" His laugh was low, almost cruel. "If someone finds out that the CEO is fucking his American intern, the black girl he hired for diversity optics." He leaned in close enough that I could feel his breath against my ear. "They already suspect, Naomi. They've suspected since the first time I kept you late. The question isn't if they know, it's whether I care." My heart stopped. Actually stopped. "Do you?" He pulled back, just enough to look at me, and for the first time since I'd known him, I saw something raw in his eyes, something that looked almost like pain. Not enough. Then his mouth was on mine, and the city, the office, the consequences, everything disappeared, except the taste of whiskey, and the sound of my own gasp, as he lifted me onto his desk with one hand still wrapped around my throat. But that wasn't where it started. That wasn't the beginning of how I became his secret, his shame, his addiction. It started 3 months earlier, with a lie on my resume and a one-way ticket I'd bought with my last credit card. I hadn't meant to end up in Seoul. I'd meant to end up anywhere that wasn't Philadelphia, where my ex had emptied our joint account, and my landlord had taped an eviction notice to a door I couldn't afford to keep. My degree in international business had gotten me exactly nowhere, and the job market back home treated fluent in Korean as a novelty rather than an asset. So I'd lied. Not about the language I'd spent my childhood summers with my Korean stepmother's family in Busan, had absorbed the culture and the tongue like a sponge. But I'd padded my experience, inflated my responsibilities, made myself look like someone Kang Industries might actually want for their new global diversity initiative. The interview was on Zoom. I'd borrowed my friend's apartment for better lighting, worn a blazer I'd stolen from my ex before he left, and smiled until my face hurt. The HR director, a sharp woman named Kim Min-ji, had looked almost bored until I'd responded to her Korean greeting without hesitation. "Your pronunciation is excellent," she'd said, switching languages mid-sentence. "Where did you study?" "Family," I'd answered simply. It was true enough. She'd hired me on the spot. 3-month trial contract. Immediate start. Visa sponsorship. The salary was barely enough to live on, but it was more than nothing. And nothing was all I had left. I'd arrived on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, I'd realized I'd made a terrible mistake. Kang Industries wasn't just a tech conglomerate. It was an empire, built on generations of family power, political connections, and the kind of money that made laws negotiable. The office culture was brutal. The hours were crushing. And everywhere I went, I felt the weight of being the only black face in a sea of perfectly pressed suits and perfectly maintained politeness. They were never outright rude. That would have been too obvious. Instead, they spoke just fast enough that I had to strain to follow, gave me projects with impossible deadlines, smiled politely when I asked questions, then whispered to each other in dialect I couldn't quite catch. I lasted 2 weeks before I seriously considered quitting. Then I met him. It was a Friday evening, almost 7. I was still at my desk, trying to finish a market analysis that my supervisor had dumped on me an hour before leaving for the day. The office was mostly empty, just the soft hum of computers and the distant sound of the cleaning crew on another floor. "You're the new American hire." I looked up so fast, I nearly knocked my coffee over. He was standing 3 feet from my desk, hands in the pockets of a suit that probably cost more than my yearly salary. Tall for a Korean man, maybe 6 feet. Graying at the temples in a way that only made him more striking. And those eyes dark, unreadable, taking in every detail of me like I was a problem to be solved. "Yes, sir." I stood up too quickly, nearly tripped over my chair. "Naomi Williams. I'm in the Global Expansion Division. I know who you are." He tilted his head slightly, a gesture that felt predatory. "Kang Joon-ho. I own this building." My stomach dropped. The CEO. The actual CEO was standing at my desk at 7 p.m. on a Friday, and I was wearing yesterday's blouse because I couldn't afford to do laundry more than once a week. "Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I was just finishing." "Why are you still here?" It wasn't accusatory. Just curious. "Park Sejang. Nim gave me an assignment. Due Monday." Something flickered across his face. "Park Ji-hoon gave you a full market analysis, due Monday at 6:55, on a Friday evening." I nodded. "And you stayed." "I need this job," I said simply. "Honestly, I'll stay as long as it takes." He studied me for a long moment, and I forced myself not to look away. My stepmother had taught me that in Korea, deference was expected, but respect had to be earned. He was testing me. I could feel it. "Go home," he said finally. "Park Ji-hoon is an idiot, playing power games with someone he sees as an easy target. I'll handle it." "I can't." "That wasn't a request, Miss Williams." His voice didn't rise, but the authority in it was absolute. "You'll report directly to my office Monday morning, 8 a.m. Then he walked away, leaving me standing there with my mouth open and my heart racing, for reasons I didn't want to examine. Monday morning, I showed up at 7:45. His secretary, an older woman with a face like carved ice, looked me up and down with obvious disdain. "You're early." "Yes, ma'am." "Don't call me ma'am. I'm Secretary Choi." She stood, smoothing her skirt. "Wait here." I waited. 8 a.m. came and went. 8:15. 8:30. I was starting to think this was some elaborate prank when the door to his office finally opened, and Kang Joon-ho appeared. "Come in." His office was terrifying, not because of the size, though it was massive, not because of the view, though you could see half of Seoul from those windows. It was terrifying because of how empty it felt. Minimal furniture, no photos, no personal touches, just clean lines, cold surfaces, and the overwhelming sense that nothing soft survived in this space. "Sit." I sat in the chair across from his desk. He didn't sit. Instead, he moved to the windows, standing with his back to me. "Do you know why I hired you?" he asked. "The Diversity Initiative." "The Diversity Initiative is political theatre. Window dressing for international investors who care about optics." He turned to face me. "I hired you because your resume was impressive. Then I had it checked. Half of it is fabricated." My blood went cold. "I should fire you," he continued, voice utterly calm. "Terminate your contract. Have you deported?" That would be the appropriate response to discovering an employee lied their way into this company. "Please, I'm not finished." He moved behind his desk, finally sitting down, fingers steepled in front of him. "But I'm not going to do that. Do you know why?" I shook my head, not trusting my voice. "Because everyone here lies," he said. "They lie about their connections, their achievements, their loyalty. The only difference is that you were desperate enough to be honest about your desperation. That interests me. I don't understand." "You will." He pulled a folder from his desk drawer, slid it across to me. "New contract. Direct hire. My personal staff. Your salary triples. Your responsibilities include translation, cultural consultation, and anything else I require. You'll work late. You'll travel. When I travel, you'll have access to sensitive information, which means you'll sign the attached NDA." He paused. "You'll also be resented, gossiped about, and generally made miserable by people who think you're here because I want to fuck you. The bluntness of it stole my breath. Do they think that? I managed to ask. They will. The question is whether you can handle it. I looked at the folder, at the salary figure that would change my life, at the NDA that was as thick as a small book, at the man across from me who was offering me everything I needed while making it perfectly clear that he expected something in return. Not sex. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But something. I can handle it, I said. His smile was slight. Barely there. We'll see. I signed. The first month was hell in slow motion. He wasn't lying about the work. 12-hour days minimum. Weekends when needed. I translated documents that should have been classified. Sat in on meetings where millions of dollars changed hands with a handshake. Learned more about the inner workings of Korean corporate politics than any outsider should ever know. And through it all, Kang Joon-ho watched me. Not obviously, not inappropriately, but I always felt his attention, like a physical weight. He noticed when I was tired, when I skipped lunch because I was too busy, when I stayed late because I didn't have anywhere else to go. He never commented, just left bottles of expensive water on my desk, had meals sent up from the executive dining room, adjusted my schedule to give me Sundays off, without me asking. It should have felt kind. Instead, it felt like training, like he was teaching me to depend on him, to anticipate his needs, to exist in his orbit. The gossip was vicious. She's sleeping with him. I heard someone whisper in the bathroom. Obviously. Why else would he keep her around? I heard she's pregnant. That's why she's always tired. Maybe she's blackmailing him. Americans love lawsuits. I learned to keep my head down, to eat lunch at my desk, to avoid the break rooms and the elevator small talk. I made myself invisible, except when he needed me, and slowly, painfully, I became good at my job, good enough that he started trusting me with more. Contracts that required delicate phrasing, client dinners, where my presence as a cultural liaison made foreign investors more comfortable. Late nights when it was just us and the cleaning crew, reviewing presentations until my eyes burned. You should go home, he said one night around 11. We were alone in his office, the only light coming from his desk lamp, and the city below. I'm fine, Naomi. The way he said my name careful, deliberate, made me look up from my laptop. When was the last time you slept more than 5 hours? When was the last time you did? His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, maybe. Or recognition. Touché. We're both workaholics with nothing better to do, I said, emboldened by exhaustion and the strange intimacy of late-night offices. At least you have an excuse. You're building an empire. I'm just trying to survive. Is that what you think this is? Survival, isn't it? He stood, moving around his desk, with that predatory grace I'd started to recognize. He stopped a few feet away, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. You're not surviving, Naomi. You're adapting. There's a difference. He paused. How old are you? The question caught me off guard. 24. Why? I'm 43. 19 years older than you. When I was your age, I was married and already running half this company. His voice was quiet, reflective. I thought I knew everything. I thought age and power were the same thing. What changed? I learned they're not. Power is easy. It's just money and fear, and knowing who to break. Age is harder. It's carrying the weight of every mistake, every compromise, every person you've hurt. He looked at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. You shouldn't be here. You hired me. I know. That's the problem. Then he turned and walked back to his desk, leaving me with more questions than answers and a pulse that wouldn't settle. Things shifted after that night. He started asking personal questions. Where I'd grown up, why I'd come to Korea, what I wanted beyond survival. I answered carefully at first, suspicious of the attention, but his interest seemed genuine, not invasive, just curious. You never talk about your family, he said one afternoon, during a rare lunch break. Not much to talk about. Mum's dead. Dad remarried when I was 12. Stepmom's Korean, which is how I learned the language. We're not close. No siblings? Half-brother. He's 16. Lives with them in Jersey. Do you miss him? The question surprised me. Sometimes. He was 7 when I left for college. We were never really close. Different worlds, you know. He nodded slowly. I have a younger sister. Haven't spoken to her in 6 years. Why? She told me I'd become exactly what our father wanted. She meant it as an insult. His smile was bitter. She wasn't wrong. It was the most personal thing he'd ever shared. And I didn't know what to do with it, except hold it carefully. The boundaries started blurring after that. He'd ask me to stay late, for reasons that had nothing to do with work. We'd talk about movies, books, the absurdity of corporate culture. He had a dark sense of humor that matched mine, and sometimes I'd catch him almost smiling at something I said. The attraction was inevitable. I tried to ignore it, to shove it down into that place where I kept all the other inconvenient truths about my life. But it was there, growing stronger every time he stood too close, every time his hand brushed mine passing documents, every time I caught him watching me with an expression I couldn't read. I wasn't naive enough to think he felt the same way. Men like him didn't want women like me. Not really. Not in any way that mattered. But then came the night that changed everything. It was a Friday, 3 months into my new position. There was a gala, some charity event, for children's education that Kang Industries sponsored. I wasn't supposed to go. I was just supposed to prepare his remarks, make sure the donation check had the right numbers, coordinate with the event staff. You're coming with me, he said that morning, dropping a garment bag on my desk. What? The gala. You're attending. Wear this. I unzipped the bag slowly. Inside was a dress-deep emerald silk, elegant and understated, but clearly expensive. Designer. Tailored. I can't. You can. You will. Someone needs to run interference with the international guests, and you're the only person on my staff who can handle it without making them feel patronized. He checked his watch. Car leaves at 6. Be ready. He left before I could argue. The dress fit perfectly. Suspiciously perfectly. Which meant he'd had someone measure me without my knowledge, or he was just that good at estimating. Either option was unsettling. The gala was held at a luxury hotel in Gangnam, the kind of place where the champagne cost more than my monthly rent and everyone's jewelry was real. I felt like a fraud in borrowed silk. But I'd learned to wear confidence like armor. Kang Joon-ho arrived exactly on time, looking devastating in a tailored tuxedo. His wife was with him. I'd known he was married. Of course I'd known. But knowing and seeing were different things. She was beautiful in that effortless way some women were: perfect skin, perfect hair, perfect posture. She smiled at the cameras, touched his arm with practiced familiarity, played the role of devoted spouse with Oscar-worthy precision. And he let her. Smiled back, posed for photos, looked like exactly what he was supposed to be. A successful man, with a successful marriage, and a successful life. I stayed in the background, doing my job, talking to investors from Singapore, executives from Tokyo, a philanthropist from New York who was delighted to meet someone who could switch between English and Korean mid-sentence. I was good at this, making people comfortable, being useful, without being seen. But I felt his eyes on me all night. Even when he was talking to someone else, even when his wife was beside him, I could feel the weight of his attention tracking me across the room. It was close to midnight when he found me on one of the balconies. I'd needed air, needed a break from the performance of it all. You're good at this, he said, appearing beside me like a shadow. At what? Making people believe you belong. Is that a compliment? An observation? He leaned against the railing, looking out at the city. My wife left. Headache. She'll be asleep before I get home. The casual way he said it, like his marriage was just another business arrangement, another thing to be managed, sent a chill through me. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to know that when I take you back to the office tonight, it's not going to be for work. My heart stopped. What? Don't play naive, Naomi. It doesn't suit you. He turned to face me fully, and the look in his eyes was pure hunger. I've been patient. I've been careful. I followed every fucking rule I set for myself. But I'm done pretending I don't want you. You're married. I'm trapped. There's a difference. His voice was low, intense. My marriage is a contract. It's always been a contract. We stopped pretending otherwise years ago. That doesn't make this okay. Nothing about this is okay. He moved closer, backing me against the railing. Nothing about you being here, working for me, looking at me like you do. None of it is okay. But that doesn't make it less real. You're my boss. I know. You're 19 years older than me. I know. If anyone finds out, they won't. Not if you don't want them to. His hand came up to cup my face, thumb tracing my cheekbone. I can give you everything you need, Naomi. Security, stability, a visa that's not dependent on a job you could lose tomorrow. All I'm asking is that you give me what I need in return. Which is what? You. In private. In secret. In ways that have nothing to do with this office or this company or any of the rest of it. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. I want you in ways I haven't wanted anyone in years. Maybe ever. And I think you want me too. He was right. God help me, he was right. This is a mistake, I breathed. Probably. His mouth was inches from mine. Are you going to make it with me anyway? I should have said no. Should have pulled away, quit the next morning, flown back to the States before I got in any deeper. Instead, I kissed him. It was like falling off a cliff. Terrifying and exhilarating, and completely out of my control. His hand tightened in my hair, pulling me closer, and I made a sound that was half gasp, half surrender. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. Come back to the office with me, he said. Please. I did. We didn't have sex that night. Not quite, but we crossed every other line. In his office, with the door locked and the city lights our only witness, he touched me, like he was trying to memorize me. Slow and deliberate, and devastatingly thorough. He learned every sound I made, every place that made me gasp, every boundary I didn't know I had. And when I finally collapsed against his desk, shaking and undone, he held me like something precious, while I tried to remember how to breathe. This doesn't leave this room, he said quietly, lips against my temple. When we're out there, I'm your boss. You're my employee. Nothing more. And in here, you're mine. It should have sounded possessive, controlling. Instead, it sounded like a promise. We developed rules after that. Unspoken, but understood. Never at the office during business hours. Never where security cameras could catch us. Never in ways that would risk exposing what we were doing. He'd text me late at night simple messages that anyone reading them would think were work-related. I need you at the office. Review these documents tonight. Conference room 3. 1 hour. I always went. Even when I knew I shouldn't. Even when I was exhausted or stressed or starting to feel like a ghost. I went. Because being with him was the only time I felt real. He was different in private. Not softer exactly, but more present. He listened when I talked about my day. Made sure I ate. Worried about me. In ways that felt genuine, rather than strategic. You're losing weight, he said one night, fingers tracing my ribs with a frown. I'm fine. You're not eating enough. I eat. Not enough. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. I'm having meals delivered to your apartment. Don't argue. That's not necessary. Naomi. His voice was firm. Let me take care of you. It's the least I can do when I'm the reason you're barely sleeping. The meals started showing up the next day. Expensive, nutritious, perfectly portioned. It should have felt patronizing. Instead, it felt like being seen. But the secrecy was eating me alive. I couldn't tell anyone what I was doing. Couldn't have friends at the office. Couldn't date. Couldn't even complain about my boss, without worrying that someone would read between the lines. I existed in this strange liminal space between his world and reality, and I didn't belong in either. The worst part was how normal it all started to feel. Meeting him late at night, hiding evidence of his presence in my apartment, lying to Secretary Choi about why I was always the last one to leave. I was becoming someone I didn't recognize, and I didn't know how to stop. What are we doing? I asked him one night, tangled in his sheets at some hotel he'd booked under a false name. It was 4 a.m., and I had to be at the office in 3 hours. Where does this go? Where do you want it to go? That's not an answer. He was quiet for a long moment. I can't leave my wife. Not now. Maybe not ever. The political connections. The business implications. It's too complicated. So I'm just... What? Your secret? Your side piece? You're not a side piece. He pulled me closer. voice rough. You're the only real thing in my life. Everything else is performance. Obligation. But this is mine. That's not fair to me. I know. And I'm sorry. But I can't let you go. His hand found my face in the darkness. Tell me you'll stay. Even if it's selfish. Even if it's wrong. Tell me you'll stay. I wanted to say no. Wanted to have enough self-respect to walk away from a man who couldn't claim me in daylight. But I was already in too deep. Already too attached to the way he looked at me. Like I was worth something. I'll stay, I whispered. His kiss tasted like relief and regret. Things came to a head 3 weeks later. There were rumors at the office. Nothing concrete. Nothing anyone would say to my face. But I could feel the shift. The whispers that stopped when I walked by. The knowing looks. The way people started treating me with a mixture of fear and contempt. Someone had seen something. Or guessed. Or decided to make trouble. I was in the bathroom when I heard them. 2 women from accounting, talking in Korean that was just slightly too fast. Assuming I wouldn't understand, or wouldn't be there. It's disgusting. She's half his age. And black. Can you imagine what the board would say if they knew? They probably do know. They just don't care. As long as he's discreet. His poor wife. His wife stopped caring years ago. Everyone knows she has her own boyfriends. But at least she's discreet about it. Still. An intern. It's tacky. My hands were shaking when I walked out. They saw me. Realized I'd heard. And had the grace to look ashamed. But the damage was done. I went straight to his office. Didn't care that it was the middle of the day. Didn't care that Secretary Choi gave me a withering look. I walked in without knocking. He looked up from his computer. Surprised. Then concerned when he saw my face. What happened? They know. Everyone knows. Or at least they suspect. And I can't do this anymore. I can't be the dirty secret everyone whispers about. He stood immediately, moved around his desk. Close the door. No. Because the second I close that door, it proves them right. Naomi. They called me disgusting. They said it was tacky that you're fucking the black intern. And they're right. It is tacky. It's worse than tacky. It's enough. His voice cut through my spiral like a knife. Sit down. I don't want to sit down. Sit down. It wasn't a request. I sat, shaking with anger and humiliation, and something that felt dangerously close to tears. He knelt in front of me, hands on my knees, forcing me to look at him. Listen to me very carefully. What they think doesn't matter. What they say doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that you're here, doing your job, and doing it better than anyone else in this building. That's easy for you to say. You're not the one they're calling disgusting. No, I'm the one they're calling a predator. A midlife crisis. A fool, risking his reputation for a piece of ass. His jaw tightened. They say worse about me than they say about you. Trust me. Then why do you keep doing this? Because I'm selfish. Because I'm weak. Because walking away from you feels like cutting off my own arm. His hands tightened on my knees. But if you want out, if this is too much, then leave. I won't stop you. I'll write you a recommendation that will get you a job anywhere you want. I'll make sure your visa is protected. You'll never have to see me again. The offer hung between us. Genuine. And terrible. Is that what you want? I asked quietly. What I want is irrelevant. This has to be your choice. I looked at him, this complicated, damaged man who'd given me everything I needed, while slowly destroying me. And I knew I couldn't leave. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I don't want to go, I admitted. I hate that I don't want to go. But I don't. Relief flooded his expression. Then stay. Stay. And let me handle the rest. How? Trust me. The next morning, there was a company-wide email from HR. New anti-harassment policies. Strict penalties for gossip about colleagues' personal lives. A reminder that discriminatory language of any kind would result in immediate termination. The message was clear. Back off, or lose your jobs. The whispers didn't stop completely, but they got quieter, more careful. And when I walked through the office, people looked away, instead of staring. He'd protected me, in the only way he could. Not by claiming me publicly, but by making it too dangerous for anyone to attack me. It should have been enough. Come to my place tonight, he said 3 days later. slipping me a keycard during a meeting where we were surrounded by people. Please. His place. Not the office. Not a hotel. His actual apartment, the one in Hanam-dong that probably cost more than I'd earn in a lifetime. What about your wife? She's visiting her parents in Jeju for the week. His eyes held mine across the conference table. I want you in my space. Properly. No more hiding in offices and hotel rooms. I went. His apartment was stunning in its minimalism. All clean lines, and expensive art and windows that made the city look like a painting. It felt empty despite the luxury, like a magazine spread instead of a home. Does she ever stay here? I asked, looking around. Rarely. She prefers the family estate in Pyeongchang. He poured us both whiskey from a crystal decanter. This place is mine. Just mine. Until now. What does that mean? It means I want you to see it. Know it. Be comfortable here. He handed me the glass. It means I'm tired of compartmentalizing you. We drank in silence, the weight of what we were doing settling over us like fog. Tell me about your marriage, I said finally. The truth. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. It was arranged. Not officially, but we both knew what it was. Her father needed political connections. My father needed legitimacy for some business dealings. We were 24 and 23, kids playing at being adults. Did you love her? I thought I did. Or maybe I loved the idea of her. The perfect wife, for the perfect life. He smiled bitterly. We had a year where we almost made it work. Then my father died. I took over the company, and everything else became secondary, including her. Does she know about me? She doesn't ask. I don't tell. That's our arrangement. He set down his glass, moved closer. We haven't shared a bed in 5 years, Naomi. We barely speak unless we're at some public event. What we have isn't a marriage. It's a business partnership that happens to be legally binding. That doesn't make this less wrong. I know, but it makes it less of a betrayal. His hand cupped my face. The person I'm betraying most is you, by keeping you hidden, by not being able to give you what you deserve. And what do I deserve? Someone your own age who can take you on real dates, who can introduce you to their family, who can marry you and make you the center of their life instead of a secret kept in the margins. His thumb traced my lower lip. But I'm too selfish to let you go find him. Maybe I don't want him. You should. Stop telling me what I should want. I grabbed his shirt, pulled him closer. I'm here. I'm choosing this. Stop trying to talk me out of it. He kissed me then, hard and desperate, and we stopped talking altogether. The next 3 months were the best and worst of my life. Best because I got to see parts of him no one else saw. His apartment became a sanctuary where we could exist without performance. We cooked together, badly, watched movies, talked about everything and nothing. He was funny when he relaxed, with a dry wit that caught me off guard. He liked trashy American action movies and pretended not to cry during sad parts. He was still my boss during the day, still maintained the careful distance that kept people guessing but not certain. But at night, in his space or in hotels across the city, he was just Joon-ho, complicated and damaged, and mine in ways that probably weren't healthy for either of us. Worst because the guilt was eating me alive. Not for his wife, she had her own life, her own lovers, and our relationship seemed to genuinely not bother her. But for myself, for the person I was becoming. I was 24, and completely isolated. I had no friends, no social life outside of him. I'd stopped answering emails from college friends, stopped posting on social media, stopped existing anywhere except in the margins of his life. You need to go out, he said one night, watching me scroll through photos of my old roommates at someone's wedding. See people your age. Live your life. I don't want to. Naomi. What am I supposed to do, June? Go to clubs and pretend I'm not sleeping with my married boss? Make friends I'll have to lie to about everything that matters? Date someone I'll have to hide you from? I laughed bitterly. This is my life now. You're my life now. He looked pained. That's not healthy. I know. Neither is this. But here we are. Things started cracking after that. I got sick, just a cold, but bad enough that I could barely get out of bed. He came to my apartment with medicine and soup and insisted on staying, even though it was risky. Someone might see you, I said, voice hoarser. I don't care. He pressed a cool hand to my forehead, frowning. You're burning up. Have you eaten anything today? Wasn't hungry. That's not an answer. He disappeared into my tiny kitchen, and I heard him moving around, opening cabinets. My apartment was a shoebox compared to his place, one room, a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in, a kitchen that was really just a hot plate and a mini fridge. But it was mine, paid for with money I'd earned, and I'd been stubborn about keeping it, even when he'd offered to move me somewhere better. He came back with water and pills. Take these. You don't have to. Naomi, take the pills. Drink the water. Let me take care of you. His voice was firm but gentle. You spend every day taking care of me. Let me return the favor. I took the pills. Let him pull me against his chest, while I shivered through a fever that made everything feel surreal. He stayed all night, which was dangerous and stupid, and exactly what I needed. I love you, I whispered. Sometime around 3 a.m., too sick and too tired to keep it in anymore. He went still. Don't say that. Why not? It's true. Because it makes this harder. His arms tightened around me. Because you shouldn't love me, Naomi. I'm using you. Maybe not intentionally, but I am. I'm keeping you locked in this half-life, because I'm too weak to let you go. Maybe I'm using you too. Did you ever think of that? I tilted my head back to look at him. You gave me everything I needed when I had nothing. Safety, purpose, a reason to stay in Korea. Maybe I'm just as selfish as you are. You're 24. You should be figuring out who you are, not hiding in the dark with a man old enough to be your father. You're 43, not 60. Stop making it sound worse than it is. It's bad enough. But he kissed my forehead, my temple, my cheek. I love you too. God help me. I do. And that's why this is so fucked up. It was the first time either of us had said it out loud. And somehow, instead of making things better, it made them infinitely worse. The end came on a Wednesday. I was at my desk, finalizing contracts for a merger with a Japanese tech firm, when Secretary Choi appeared. The CEO wants to see you. Immediately. Her tone was strange. Not hostile exactly, but not neutral either. Almost pitying. I found him standing at his window, hands clasped behind his back. The posture was rigid, controlled. Wrong. Close the door, he said without turning around. I did. What's wrong? Someone sent photos to the board. His voice was carefully empty. Of us. Entering a hotel in Gangnam. Leaving my apartment building at 2 a.m. Nothing explicit, but damning enough. My stomach dropped. Who? Does it matter? He finally turned to face me, and I'd never seen him look so defeated. They're demanding an explanation, threatening to leak them to the press unless I handle it. Handle it how? Fire you. Publicly. Make a statement about inappropriate workplace conduct. Throw you under the bus to save the company's reputation. His jaw clenched. They want me to destroy you to save myself. Then do it. What? Fire me. Blame me. Say I pursued you, manipulated you. Whatever story they need to hear. My voice was surprisingly steady. You can't lose everything because of me. You think I care about the company more than I care about you. I think you've spent your entire life building this, and I won't be the reason it falls apart. I moved closer, taking his hands in mine. I'm nobody, Joon-ho. I'm a girl with a fake resume and a work visa. If you finish that sentence by diminishing yourself, I swear to God. He pulled me against him, fierce and almost violent. You are not nobody. You're the only person in this entire fucking city who sees me as something other than a name or a bank account. Do you understand that? Then what do we do? He was quiet for a long moment, and I felt him making a decision. Felt the weight of it settling over both of us. I'm going to fix this, he said finally. But you need to trust me, and you need to do exactly what I say. The plan was brutal in its simplicity. He called an emergency board meeting. Had me sit in the room with the 11 men who ran Kang Industries behind the scenes. Let them see me young, black, clearly out of place in their world of old money and older traditions. Gentlemen, he began, voice cold as winter. You requested an explanation. Here it is. Yes. I've been involved with Miss Williams. Yes. It was inappropriate given our professional relationship. And no, I will not be firing her. The room erupted. Voices overlapping, some in Korean too fast for me to fully catch. All of them angry. You can't be serious. The optics alone. Your wife's family. Enough. Joon-ho's voice cut through the noise like a blade. I'm not finished. Miss Williams is being promoted. Effective immediately, she'll be Director of International Relations, reporting directly to me with full autonomy. Her salary will reflect the position, and anyone who has a problem with that can tender their resignation. Silence. As for the photos, he continued, I've already spoken to my wife. She's known about my relationship with Miss Williams for months. We're in the process of legally separating. The paperwork will be filed by the end of the week. I couldn't breathe. He hadn't told me this. Hadn't even hinted. You're making a mistake, one of the older board members said. Park something. I couldn't remember his full name through the ringing in my ears. For a girl you'll be tired of in 6 months. Be very careful what you say next. Joon-ho interrupted, voice deadly quiet. You're talking about the woman I intend to marry. Eventually, when it's legal and appropriate. So I suggest you adjust your tone. The room went silent again. He looked at me then. And despite everything, the audience, the stakes, the career suicide he was committing, he smiled. Small and real, and meant only for me. I'm done hiding, he said simply. I'm done pretending the most important thing in my life doesn't exist, because other people might be uncomfortable. And if that costs me this company, then I'm willing to pay that price. It didn't cost him the company. Not quite. 3 board members resigned. His wife's family pulled their political support, which meant several lucrative government contracts evaporated overnight. The press had a field day older CEO, young foreign employee, marriage falling apart. We were tabloid gold for about 2 weeks. But the company survived. And so did we. The separation was messy, but surprisingly amicable. His wife didn't want a scandal any more than he did, and she'd been planning to leave anyway. The settlement was generous. She got the estate in Pyeongchang, several investment properties, and enough money to live comfortably for the rest of her life. She said thank you, Joon-ho told me one night. Months later, we were in his apartment. Our apartment now, since I'd moved in properly once the divorce was finalized, for giving her an excuse to finally leave. Did she really not mind about us? She said she'd known since the first time she saw us in the same room. Something about the way I looked at you. He pulled me closer on the couch. Apparently I stopped looking at her that way years ago. Do you regret it? Everything you gave up? I regret that it took me so long to be honest. That I wasted months of your life making you feel like a secret. His hand found mine, fingers interlacing. But do I regret choosing you? Never. The industry gossip took longer to fade. But it did fade. We kept our heads down, worked harder than ever, proved that I'd earned my position through competence rather than manipulation. Slowly, grudgingly, people stopped treating me like a scandal and started treating me like a professional. It wasn't perfect. There were still whispers, still people who would never see me as anything other than the girl who slept her way to the top. But there were also people who respected what we'd built, both the company's international expansion and our relationship. His family was harder. His mother refused to meet me for the first year, called me every variation of gold digger and homewrecker in Korean and English. His sister, the one he hadn't spoken to in 6 years, sent a single text. Good. Maybe now you'll remember how to be human. They came around eventually, not because they approved, but because they saw that he was happy for the first time in decades. That counted for something, apparently. My family was complicated. My dad didn't understand why I'd stay in Korea, why I'd date someone so much older, why I'd risk everything for this relationship. But my stepmother got it. She'd been in a similar position once young, foreign, involved with someone her family didn't approve of. Love makes us do foolish things, she told me on a video call. The question is, whether it's the good kind of foolish, or the kind that destroys you. I don't know yet, I admitted. Then keep paying attention. The moment it becomes the second kind, you run. Promise me. I promise. We got married 2 years after that board meeting. Small ceremony, just immediate family and a few close friends. Nothing like the elaborate production his first wedding had been. This was just us, choosing each other officially, legally, without secrets or shame. I love you, he said during our vows, voice rough with emotion. I love your strength, your stubbornness, your refusal to let me wallow in my own guilt. You made me want to be better than I was. You made me believe I could be. I love you, I said back, tears streaming down my face. Even when it was terrible, even when I hated myself for it, even when everyone said I was making a mistake. I love you. The age gap didn't disappear. Neither did the cultural differences, or the complicated history, or the fact that sometimes, when we fought, I still saw echoes of the power imbalance that had defined our early relationship. But we worked on it, went to therapy, separately, and together, learned how to be partners instead of boss and employee, how to exist in daylight without the crutch of secrecy, how to let other people into our lives without feeling like we were betraying what we had. It was hard. Some days, it was really hard. But it was also real, messy and complicated, and occasionally dysfunctional, but real. 5 years after that first kiss on the balcony, I stood in our living room, the apartment we'd renovated together, filling it with things that felt like us, instead of a magazine spread, and watched him play with our daughter. She was 2, half Korean, half black, absolutely perfect. She had his eyes and my nose, and a stubborn streak that came from both of us. Appa, higher, she demanded in Korean, and he lifted her toward the ceiling while she shrieked with laughter. Careful, I said, but I was smiling. I've got her. He caught my eye, and the look he gave me was soft, grateful, still a little amazed that this was real, that we'd made it through everything and come out on the other side. My phone buzzed. A message from Minji, the HR director who'd hired me all those years ago. We'd become friends eventually, once the scandal died down. Lunch next week? Want to hear about the new chaos at the office? I texted back. Definitely. My treat. Everything okay? Joon-ho asked, setting our daughter down so she could toddle off toward her toys. Yeah, just Minji wanting to catch up. I moved into his space, let him wrap his arms around me. I love our life. Me too. He kissed the top of my head. Even though we probably traumatized half the company getting here, especially because we traumatized half the company. I tilted my head back to look at him. We earned this, Joon-ho, the hard way, but we earned it. We did. His smile was real, reaching his eyes in a way it never had back when I first met him. Thank you. For what? For being stubborn enough to stay. For loving me when I didn't deserve it. For making me fight for something that actually mattered, instead of just going through the motions. He cupped my face, thumbs brushing my cheekbones. For seeing me when I was invisible to myself. I kissed him then, soft and slow, tasting coffee and morning, and the life we'd built from scandal and secrets and stubborn love. Our daughter made a disgusted sound. Appa and Aoma, kissing, yucky. We broke apart, laughing, and he scooped her up again. One day you'll understand, baby girl. Love is complicated and messy and sometimes yucky, but it's worth it. She looked skeptical, which made me laugh harder. Yeah, it was worth it. All of it, the secrets, the shame, the scandal, the struggle. Because we'd found something real in the darkness, and we'd fought like hell to bring it into the light. Was it perfect? No. Would I recommend this path to anyone else? Absolutely not. But it was ours, earned through compromise and growth, and refusing to let the world tell us who we were allowed to love. And in the end, that was enough. Looking back now, 6 years after I first walked into Kang Industries with a fake resume and a desperate dream, I understand something I couldn't have seen then. Sometimes, the dirtiest secrets are the ones that save us. He was never supposed to be mine. I was never supposed to be his. The age gap, the power imbalance, the married CEO, and the struggling intern. It was every cliché, every cautionary tale, every reason people shake their heads and say, what were they thinking? But here's what they don't tell you about forbidden love. Sometimes it's forbidden because it forces you to choose yourself over everyone else's comfort. Sometimes it's scandalous because it demands you fight for something real in a world of polite lies. I'm not saying what we did was right. I'm not saying you should follow in my footsteps. But I am saying this. I became his dirty secret, and in the process, I became someone who refused to live in the shadows forever. And maybe that's the real story. Not that I was hidden, but that I refused to stay hidden. Not that he kept me secret, but that he eventually chose me over the secrets. We're still here, still fighting for each other, still proving that love doesn't have to be convenient to be real. And if you made it this far through our messy, complicated story, if you stayed for the scandal and the secrets and the slow burn, then thank you. Drop a comment below telling me what you thought. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this. Hit the like button if you believe in second chances and complicated love. Because this was our story. Dirty, secret, real, and I wouldn't change a single thing.